Woohoo!
Roughly over the past 100 years in the United States, our productivity per person has increased about 20% annually, every year.
Wow.
It's outrageous, right?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
The question that I think the internet asks is, why are we still working so hard then?
Right?
If we could produce what we used to produce, 100 years ago, many times over now, using fewer people, why are we all working so hard?
Yeah. And if we are working so hard, then why hasn't our pay increased 20-fold?
Also a good question. Why would capitalism or a free market tend to overproduce?
As we discussed before, capitalism's main priority is profit. It never sets an end to the goal, because the goal is always prioritizing more profit and more profit and more profit. In communism, where the goal was distribute wealth pretty equally, or like according to how much people need it.
The reward for the free markets is profit.
Yeah.
It's not anything else. It's not some particular good you're trying to produce. There's no end thing goal necessarily.
It's just material gain.
To some degree, that gets exacerbated by the stock market. Public companies, which comprise a large portion of our employment, are encouraged by investors or owners to increase the amount of profit they have annually, because that has sort of an exponential effect on the stock price.
Yeah.
In the stock market, is there a mechanism within the theory of capitalism whereby public companies can reward their owners without increasing productivity endlessly? So, for instance, if your profits aren't increasing, the value of your company is not going to increase.
No.
Public companies can choose to do a couple of things with their profits. They can reinvest them in the company, and therefore try to grow that company. That creates increased equity value, so stockholders like that. The other thing they can do, though, is what are called dividends. And that is where there's like, listen, we're a pretty established company, we're not growing. Putting money back into this company is not going to help us grow. Yeah. So we're just going to distribute the income from this company equally amongst all of its owners. Theoretically and practically, what are some mechanisms within capitalism itself that should prevent overproduction?
Capitalism functions on the system where there is demand by consumers, and then companies work to supply goods consumers can buy from them and they can gain profit. And so if we're going based on the system, then theoretically it should keep itself in check, because they're only going to be able to produce as much as people want to consume, and that will lead into this sort of closed loop where people only want so much, and so they only produce so much, and so it's all sort of equalizes out to how much the world needs.
That's clearly the mechanism, most fundamentally in capitalism, that's supposed to prevent overproduction.
Yeah.
We already talked about the most powerful driver in capitalism is the consumer.
Yeah.
The consumer decides what gets produced and how much.
Yeah.
And if you produce more than the customer wants or needs,
you lose money.
Yeah, you're just going to have inventory on your shelves, and that's going to cost you money. So do you think that in general works?
It does work in a lot of cases. It has to work on some level, because that's kind of what capitalism's all about. If it didn't work, then capitalism wouldn't really exist.
If automobile manufacturers produce too many cars, profits suffer.
Yes.
If airlines have too many planes in the air, profits suffer.
Yeah.
And they're highly reactive to those.
Yeah, they're very aware of the relationship between supply and demand.
For sure they are. The point is, capitalism built into it has an extraordinarily powerful mechanism to prevent overproduction.
Yeah.
The most common answer to this that I see people say is capitalism continues to be able to overproduce because it uses some portion of its profits in marketing. And that marketing creates a demand that is artificial. What do you think about that? How real is that?
That definitely makes sense, and that was definitely one of the things that I was thinking about. Companies, their priority is to make profit. So their priority is not inherently to meet the consumer's demands. That's just the way to make profit that they found. And so, obviously, the way to make more profit is to sell more. And the only way to sell more is to create more demand. And this goes into making people want more of something that they maybe already wanted, or making someone want something that they didn't even want at all before they saw this.
marketing of every aspect of capitalism probably gets the worst rap. Is marketing inherently bad?
No. Marketing at its best just shows people something that they haven't seen before and asks them, hey, are you interested in this? Because this is what it does. Marketing can be how new products enter into the public view. It can be how people discover TV shows they want to watch. It can be how people discover like innovative new inventions or something that makes something way easier for them than before. Marketing is just to make people see something and then ask them if they want it.
And for new products or for unfamiliar products, that's kind of important.
It's essential.
You have to tell your story.
Yeah, you have to let them know this exists. But marketing can also have a dark side where it becomes more and more manipulative and less honest and uses like these sort of psychological tricks to make people not interested in something they didn't know existed or they weren't aware of, but interested in something that they would not be interested in if not for the ad specific tactics.
Let me ask you two questions. One, how effective do you think marketing is in general on people in creating needs that don't exist?
People have this inherent tendency to hate ads. And so then like marketing is already like facing this issue where people like are inherently like they just do not want to see it. But do I think that once it gets past that, it is pretty good at that?
Let me ask you a second question then. How effective do you think marketing has been on you in getting you to do things or make purchases that you didn't need or want?
Most of the stuff I do buy is stuff that I've always had an interest in. I'll buy books because I enjoy reading. I'll buy food because I like eating. Well, there's probably something in the food there where is like certain products appeal to me that I didn't realize I liked before, but I don't think that's necessarily tricking me into liking something I didn't before, because it's just like a new taste that appeals to me. So I think, me personally, I've probably been manipulated by ads before, but I don't think it has that large of effect in my day-to-day life.
I would posit that most people who profess that marketing creates needs for people that don't exist feel roughly the same way you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely happens, but not really to me.
Yeah, well, like that's kind of always a thing where it's like I can't be manipulated that easily.
But I think that those people are actually correct. I've been a marketer my whole life. Every business I've ever built, I'm always the CEO and the marketing guy. I have spent millions of dollars in marketing, and I'm extremely thoughtful in how I present things, and I have never even come close to creating a need that didn't exist. Zero success in that. So, I mean, I believe that marketing can move the needle. And marketing can help develop brand loyalty, right? So it might make you buy Colgate instead of Crest. But you're not going to buy toothpaste unless you believe that's a good product or a real product.
Yeah.
I buy the marketing answer maybe a little bit. Like maybe it causes us to expend 15% more than we would normally maybe. But that's not what we're talking about, is it? In terms of numbers.
No. We're talking the 20 times.
Every year. 20% every year.
Yeah.
In the course of 20, 50 years, multiple fold increases in productivity.
Yeah.
Hundreds of percent increases in productivity. That's not something marketing is causing.
No.
Let's ask the question again.
Okay.
If capitalism has these built-in mechanisms, I mean, literally core to it is that it's a free market so that people only produce what people want. And people's wants can be somewhat manipulated, but not wholesale manufactured in general.
Yeah.
Why do we continue to work 40 or 50 hours a week when our productivity has increased by so much?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me how they can be producing so much and yet they can still be making profit from it, even though people clearly aren't able to meet their supply. Something
that I've spent a large part of my professional career trying to solve is what I call the problem of work. From a very young age, I was just like, this whole working thing seems kind of like bullshit. I mean, why are we all like out here running around like crazy people? Like, and a lot of us seem like we're just doing kind of dumb stuff. Like, why are we doing it? What does work do for the world?
Work produces. Work makes things. Whether that be a product, whether that be a good or a service. So like the base amount, like for it's like producing like food for us to eat, to making computers for us to work on, to coding those computers, to like making the buildings that we live in and work in and walk around. Like, work does everything.
One obvious value of work is it creates goods and services for us to consume and lead our lives.
Yeah.
So in that case, work doesn't seem like a problem, right? That seems like the natural fit for work.
Right.
What else does work do in our society?
I don't know, makes people sad.
How do you think it feels to be unemployed in this world?
Probably a little bit freeing and like a little bit desperate.
How do you think other people view you when you're unemployed?
Lazy. Even though like it seems like a lot of people hate work, they prioritize work so much that someone that's like unemployed, even if they're actively searching for the job, or even if they're unemployed and then they're also actively doing something else with their time, like they're a student at university, people will look at that person and think they're not working, so they must be lazy because they just don't want to work.
So let's say I am one of those people, right?
Yeah.
People ask me, what do you do? And I go, nothing. Listen, I can live with my parents. I don't need any money for my hobbies, really. I play video games. That's just what I do. How do people view that kind of reaction?
Oh, dude. If you just say you're unemployed, but then you say like, oh, you're looking for jobs, there might be some benefit of the doubt. But if you tell them that you've not worked, you're not looking to work, and you're just spending your time doing nothing, people hate you. People think you're lazy, people think you're unproductive, people think you're like a waste of space. They think like, I can never be you. But they're also, to a certain extent, a little bit envious of you because they have to work while you don't.
So I think, in short, what you're saying is that work is how we justify our existence in society right now.
Yes, which could have some immediate effects on production.
Let's get into this idea of justifying our existence through work.
Right.
How does justifying your existence through work in a tribal setting?
In a tribal setting, you justify your existence through work because, like, that is how your existence is justified. Because if you're not contributing to the tribe and the people around you, you're gonna get kicked out. In this, like, sort of tribal setting, there's a much more direct results from working to like surviving. You're like hunting food, or like you're like gathering food, and so if you don't work to get that food, then you don't eat. To a certain extent, that's how like today works. Like, if you don't work, then you don't eat. But it's a really more immediate, because it's not like you have this whole thing through money and like, oh, I work in customer service. It's like, no, I work to get food, and then if I don't get food, then I don't eat, and then you die. And
so you've given a picture of a tribe that is subsistence level.
Yeah.
And if everyone's not contributing, then there's not enough food to go around, and the people who there's not enough food to go around are going to get no food.
Yeah.
What about a tribe that's experiencing abundance? Most of the people still have to work to produce the food that they need, but 10, 20% could probably not work, and there's plenty of food for them to go around. Do the people who are working to create the food have any problem with those people who aren't working and eating the food, or is that all good and dandy? Yeah, they have a problem, because they don't want these other people to just be slacking around and not making food, and they have to work hard every single day to make food. They want it either so that they can be the ones that don't have to work but still eat food, or they want to force everyone to work. What is that? What is this thing in humans that causes that? Fair's fair. People want things to be fair, which makes sense. I have that urge too. Everyone has that urge. Things need to be, if not necessarily equal, then fair. So if someone is putting in none of the work and they are still getting all the reward, while you're putting in all of the work and you're getting the same reward as they are, you hate that person, because you're like, that's not fair. You need to be doing the same amount of work, or you need to be getting less reward, because the amount of reward you're getting is not equal to the amount of work you're putting in. How common or deep-seated do you feel like that feeling of fairness is in humans? Oh, incredibly deep-seated. I think that's been around since before we were humans. And I think that it has very real use. Because back when the tribe's not doing that well, when it doesn't have an overabundance of food, then yeah, those people do need to work. And if they don't work, then they don't get food, and that's fair. You said it goes back to before we were humans, and that's empirically true. They do many tests on primates where they'll do something along the lines of, by doing a certain thing, two monkeys will get a reward. And then one day, they give one of the monkeys a bigger reward. And more often than not, the monkey who gets shorted doesn't even take his reward.
That's so funny.
That's how serious fairness is. No, I'd rather starve than accept this unfair reward.
I've done that before. One time, we were like at the zoo or something. We were at like this like nature place. I don't know, dude. And this guy, he was giving rewards out to people that ask questions, like participation awards, like, you know, when they do that when like you're like pretty young. But he only had like a limited amount of stuff. And so I really wanted this one thing. I was like raising my hand, like a few other people were like raising their hands, and then this one person got called on, and they said the question, and he was like, okay, good, like what reward do you want? And they got that reward. And then he like immediately called on me. I like said the question, and he was like, okay, well, what do you want? I was like, I don't want a reward. I don't want anything. Like young, old, primates, humans, this is huge for us. Like this is baked into what we are. Yeah. Now let's talk about this in relationship to overproduction. In society, we work to produce goods. Yeah. But we also work to justify our position in society. Yes. How important is our position in society to us as human beings? Very important. We are social creatures inherently. And so our position in a society, that's really important to us. We think we're worthless if we don't do like the correct amount of work. People do not want to be worthless. Not only do we feel this pressure to justify our existence by working from other people, individually, most of us have internalized that. Yeah, yeah. And the internal pressure is like there's a lot of like peer pressure that goes on that like affects people really harshly, but the internal pressure is way more effective than the external pressure is. And I think here's where we run into a real issue for human beings. We've developed psychologically at a time in history where we needed to produce in order for our tribe to survive. And that same brain has been transported into a society where we are already producing more than we could ever need. But we still have the need to produce. Yeah. Because something is natural doesn't mean we need it anymore. So if we really worked hard together, I think we could create something where we put in like work and then we got reward, but then also that work was significantly lesser and that reward was significantly more. But in the system that we are now, capitalism prioritizes profits so much that it saw this like mindset in people, it saw this like psychological sort of issue in people where they need to produce in order to be worth something. And then they said, yes, you do. And then they broadcast that everywhere. So they're like, this instinct is absolutely right, and you're right in thinking that, and you are worthless if you don't work. And they made people not only like work as hard as they think they need to, but it increased the amount of work people think they need to do in order to function in society. Some of those tribes people worked a hell of a lot less than some people are working today. And it increased that so much, and it keeps increasing that to the extent where people are almost reaching the amount where they can't keep up with it anymore. I agree that I think capitalism has some mechanisms that feed back on this negatively. I still feel like this is coming from us. Yeah. No. Right? And it's not just even like the need to justify our existence to ourselves and others. There's also the more pernicious aspect of this where people are competing with each other just to have more shit. Yeah. And listen, you can say capitalism breeds that, but that's also part of humans integrally too. I think that like multiple things can be true. This is obviously a very inherent psychological thing that we all have. And at the same time, capitalism is exploiting this and to a certain extent even like increasing this so that it can like prioritize production. And in a way it's similar to advertising. Capitalism can't exactly create that need, but it can illuminate the need that you have and increase that to amounts that you wouldn't have had before. We hope that you enjoyed that video, and if you did, please consider checking out the next one in the series. Or some of our other series on philosophy and life. We upload videos every Friday, so don't forget to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. See you next week.